Today is Sunday, the 24th. Started removing the linoleum and the particle board that is underneath. Getting down to the subfloor, and as we can see, we do have water that seeps through these. This is particle board, and any water that gets on the floor gets into a seam of the linoleum, it will cause water damage. This particular piece was over in this corner. This is where the sink was. So this is not, I was thinking because of this linoleum seam that runs here that there was going to be likely water damage here. Wasn't quite expecting to see it all the way to the subfloor. Over here, get a good visual of what we're talking about with this water damage over here. It extends all the way in. That's 2 feet from the wall underneath. That's how water damage happens. Water, it's not a little bit of water. This wouldn't even be a gallon or two of water. This is gallons and gallons of water over an extended amount of time to actually seep through and make stains like this. It's not just a one-time deal. This is basically very characteristic. Everything that we found is characteristic of a long-standing water leak issue. I'm going to remove the rest of this today, and when I get done, I'll videotape all the stains on the subfloor and note the boards that I have to remove and replace. This board here, because of the dry rot there, is going to have to be replaced, and unfortunately that is underneath the wall. It's not going to be easy. It's very labor intensive to try and remove that. We actually have this 2x6. It's 2x6 on top of it. So this extends 6 inches. This piece of 3/4 plywood for the floor extends 6 inches in, and it's sitting on top of the foundation, and a top piece of wood on the foundation. Then you have the plywood on top, nailed down. Then you have this 2x6, which is the base of the wall on top of that. So removing this requires somehow removing the 2x6 in the wall. Gives you a good idea of how much work is involved in fixing water damage properly and dry rot. And if we do not fix this, it will continue to spread. All right, I want to do a another visual on what we got here. So this spot is the bulk of the water damage. So far the worst water damage that I've found. We do have this turned out to be an isolated stain. Interesting, but not unanticipated. Over here we have the completely rotted board underneath the cabinets. Here we have major dry rot. Here we have more water damage on the other side of the sink. I haven't even gotten to the dishwasher area, which is over here. I did find water evidence there as well. Here it looks like I have more water damage. I need to pull up something. I want to remind anybody watching that I didn't just start pulling up flooring to find magical water damage. I started at the top. I started what was already known. We did start because we had mold and water damage over on this side of the kitchen, which we now are pretty confident came from the toilet leak in the ceiling that ran along here, came down and damaged these cabinets. Once I found the excessive mold and water damage here, I focused my attention on pulling up the rest of the quarter round that was at the base of the linoleum, and I found more water damage right here. In fact, it was mold and water damage, and here's the mold line right here. So this is still here. This is why I started looking in this area. I saw the seam and I saw water damage there. We started pulling up more cabinets, and we found more and more water damage when we got the granite facings off the top of the cabinets. We found the old cabinet tops, which were plywood. They are normally replaced when you put granite on, but instead they left a nice little trail. We also have evidence of water and mold. This is where we found the water damage on the countertops. If you look directly down here, we have the water damage here. I'm simply following the trail that started at the top in the counters, what was already visually there. we know that there was a water leak here at the sink. The entire false bottom was noted in the inspection as being water damaged, and it was advised to be, we were told it was fixed. All the water leaks and the damage was fixed, except for the false bottom. Of course, we wanted the false bottom done, and it was in the notes to have the false bottom. That was all supposed to be done before we bought the house, and the seller decided to not do it. Likely because, well, we would have found more and more damage. So this is frustrating. This was all supposed to be done. All the water damage in this house was supposed to be not only fixed, but repaired properly, and instead we find that it's covered up. The water damage here at the cabinet, covered up by the granite, the false bottom not removed and replaced like was supposed to be done in one of our addendums, whatever. And of course the ceiling was drooping and wet at one point. It was screwed back up so it wouldn't sag, and then covered up. So we have covered up water damage. And digging further, we find that it is a systemic problem here in this kitchen. And I'm going to keep going. I have no choice but to find all of it as much as I can and keep following the trail. And that's all I'm doing here, is following the trail and removing stuff until we find the end of the damage, and we repair and replace all the damaged pieces of lumber and drywall and whatnot. Exactly what we did in the ceiling here. I found no, aside from this large section, I did not find any other water damage in the ceiling, which is good. So I'm going to keep going on the floor till we find the end. And of course, in this case, the end will likely be somewhere in that area on that side and way over here on this side. Who knows? We might even find some more in here. Don't know. There could be a linoleum seam and water seep through. Okay, looks like I'll be updating this a little more frequent than anticipated. This is water damage from the pantry here. I was unaware that there was any sort of water here. We do have mold on the drywall, so I'll be replacing that drywall. We got water damage floor. I got to check for dry rot. It looks to be going underneath that wall. Okay. Alright, well, the refrigerator was here, and this, actually I found this to be leaking in the off position. So I have this here, a very small leak, but it was dripping all the way down into the basement area. So if that's the case, yeah, okay, I can see where the water was coming from. This is the seal in this faucet is bad. It shouldn't have, I don't know. If it was leaking out of this hole right here, so if it was plugged into a refrigerator, it won't leak. If it's not, it will sit there and drip. I guess I have to get in there and open this up and see if there's more damage. We finished pulling up the floor today. This is, I believe, where we left off with this being exposed. We do have water damage and dry rot there. Water damage here where it was sitting up against the cabinet here. It all comes, there's actually a stain, a light stain. This happens to be higher, and that's the low, and then it goes down further. There's actually a couple of holes there in the floor, likely where a lot of it was draining into the garage. Probably some drywall damage in the garage ceiling. We have more over here. We did see damage on the wall here, and of course we have it on the floor. There's water damage in this closet as well in the corner and around over here. A couple isolated spots underneath this window here, and there's another window here, and we got a corner over here with some damage. But that's the bulk of it. Have to determine which pieces need to be replaced and how to do it. Some of these are under walls. Today is the 29th, 28th, and I wanted to check in on the progress of the kitchen I've scrubbed and cleaned the wood that is savable and the floor that's savable. This section over here was not usable. The dry rot extended about 2/3 of the way through the ply and into some other wood. We removed, very painfully removed the section here by raising the foundation of the house and cutting the nails and pulling out the rotted piece of wood. This new piece is just covering up a hole. Unfortunately, while I was under the house, I found wiring that's been chewed by rats that I have to replace as well, so we're leaving this not fully installed until the electrician can come out and do some repairs. But that is where we stand with this kitchen. We did pull up the drywall in here and find out why the water stopped in the pantry, and that is because of this plate that covers up the ducts from the heating and air conditioning system, which is under the house, and there's a drain right next to it. So the water actually ran all the way from way up there down. All this is sloped over here because the floor is not level, and it ran into here, and the water just dripped down into the basement. So although that's a good thing, it's cement in the basement and there's no more water damage, it stopped here. We do know why it stopped here. We do have a hole over here that I noted earlier, that this had a cable through it, so it wasn't a wide open hole, but it is still a hole. Water is going to be leaking in there into the ceiling, so we'd have to pull up some ceiling in the garage to check for damage there. There's also another section that they said was not an issue in the garage. I'm going to check that as well. That would be from the master bathroom leak that is directly over this heater, and of course the drywall that I'll be opening up in the garage is directly under this heater, so that'll be next, or before the drywall guy comes out. We're going to do that to make sure that any damaged drywall, any mold is removed from the house. Anything that we know to be of concern for water, we remove it so it's no longer a health issue. There's an odd smell in the garage. There was an odd smell in this kitchen from all of this, and the wet floor and the nasty floor. The smells are all gone, which is great in the kitchen. We still do have it elsewhere, so we'll be investigating. I'm hoping that there's not too much more damage because this is getting quite involved.